Hey everyone, it's Tobes, and welcome to your second monitor. Today is the next video in our series of March of the Machine Commander deck techs. I'm covering every legendary creature from March of the Machine's main set in no particular order, plus the extra legends from Mom Jumpstart, the special pre-release promos, and if there's interest, maybe even the non-face legends from the Mom Commander products. So if you have a request for a specific commander you'd like to see me build, or a way you'd like to see me build them, let me know in the comments below. As you see, today our commander is Polukranos Reborn, the legendary Hydra from the plane of Theros. We first met Poly-K in the original Theros set as a mono-green monstrosity, then again in Theros Beyond Death as a black-green zombie Hydra trying to escape the underworld. Now the World Eater is back in the mortal realm and ready to wreak havoc by doing its best Wormcoil Engine impression. I played this card in Standard and I love it, so I can't wait to show you the deck that I made for him. But before we get started, let's go over my deck building template. I like to build around my commander. I want to showcase them. I want to show off why they're cool and why I put them in the command zone. So I put 30 cards toward my game plan. It's what that commander leads me to do and how I try to win at the table. 30 more cards go towards supporting that game plan in the form of card advantage, acceleration, and interaction. I run a few sweepers, usually one or two. Sometimes I'll do more if it would play into my game plan. Sometimes I don't do any, just depending. But I typically keep a floor of 38 lands because I want to be able to cast my spells. So let's talk about Polukranos Reborn. Polukranos Reborn is a 4/5 legendary Hydra with reach that casts for triple green, just 3 mana, and has the ability for 6 and a Phyrexian white, which means either 6 and a white or 6 and 2 life. You can transform Polukranos as a sorcery into Polukranos Engine of Ruin. This is a legendary Phyrexian Hydra. It's a 6/6 with reach and lifelink. And it says, whenever Polukranos or another non-token Hydra you control dies, make a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian Hydra creature token with reach, and then that same token, but with lifelink. So it splits in half. You get your 6/6 with reach and lifelink to turn into 2 3/3s, one with reach, one with lifelink. And it can confer this to all your other Hydras as well. So at first glance, Polukranos is pretty sweet. A 4/5 for 3 mana with upside and no downside? I guess Leatherback Baloth was 15 years ago. Even better, for 6 or 7 mana, you can flip him into this 6/6 reach lifelink that does the Triplicate Titan thing when he dies. And he can give that same ability to other Hydras. Wow. That's just, it's kind of underwhelming. Sorry, Poly-K. Yeah, I said that I played him in Standard, but it's 2025. He's a big body with reach that, with a sizable mana investment, gets 3 more points in his power and toughness and gains lifelink. I mean, sure, he leaves babies behind when he dies, but they're 2 halves of a whole that wasn't so impressive to start. I hate to say it, but Polukranos here is just north of being vanilla, which, as we all know, is the finest of the flavors. In Magic, a vanilla creature is one with no abilities. French vanilla is what we call a step up from that, creatures with only keyword abilities, usually just evergreen keywords. Polukranos is essentially a French vanilla creature that can transform into a better French vanilla creature, except that when he dies, he leaves 2 more French vanilla creatures behind. Sensing a theme? That's right, inspired by our commander, our deck is almost entirely creatures with only keyword abilities. I have a few exceptions to tie the room together, but the general idea here is that we're here to play fair Magic, creatures with keywords, slugging it out. Just like Polukranos, we can also make a few French vanilla tokens, and we do have a small cohort of creatures who are French vanilla in the keyword sense, but with abilities less evergreen. Finally, we have Anthems that pump up our creatures or grant them even more keyword abilities, spreading the flavors around until they meld together into a delicious keyword soup. It's kind of like a stone soup, in fact, with every creature bringing something special to the party. A potluck we can all enjoy. To quote another Greek mythology-inspired work, and if no one takes too much, there will always be enough. She will always fill our cups, and we will always raise them up to the world we dream about and the one we live in now. You'll enjoy this deck if it makes you feel good to play an honest game of Magic, casting creatures and turning them sideways, unless of course they have Vigilance. This is also a pretty fun deck for new players who are a little daunted by the stack and want something that they can feel confident piloting while they get a taste of a few new mechanics that are popular in Commander, such as Cascade and Myriad, without being overwhelmed by them. As usual, at the bottom of this Moxfield page, which of course I have linked in the description, there is a considering section as well. Cards that maybe exceeded the budget for this deck or maybe weren't quite good enough. So if you have more of a budget or less of one, you can use those cards as a great starting point. Or if you want to take the deck in a different direction, that's great too. So we're going to start with our abilities. We have a lot of them, so I've categorized these creatures by their abilities because it probably won't take us that long to get through them since that's all they do. So we're going to start with our Deathtouchers. Dragon Sniper is 1 green mana for a 1/1 human archer from Tarkir Dragonstorm with Vigilance, Reach, and Deathtouch. That's a lot of abilities on a single mana creature. But most importantly, they're a Deathtoucher. If we want to attack with them, we're not going to have to tap them because of Vigilance. If we want not to do that, which is probably the case, we can hold them up and they can block flyers too. They're just going to trade with anything. Seems good. The same is true of Ambush Viper. Ambush Viper is one of the 2 cards we have in the deck with Flash. So it's a 2/1 snake for 1 and a green that we can flash in if we want to, and it has Deathtouch. Trades. Seems good. Yeah. Deathtouchers have a kind of a weird version of evasion, at least in my experience. Maybe this is just the people I play against, but in Commander, people don't put cards in their deck that they don't like. So they don't like to trade their creatures, especially because, you know, they have so much life. So if you want to attack with a Deathtoucher, your opponent knows that they're going to have to trade whatever they block with. So unless they're throwing away like a little servo token or something, typically they just won't block. They'll just take the 2 damage, which means, you know, evasion. And then we have Axebane Ferox. Axebane Ferox is mostly vanilla, mostly French vanilla rather. 2 and double green for a 4/4 beast with Deathtouch and Haste. It's got Haste, but it also has Ward, Collect Evidence 4. So Ward is a little bit unusual for this, but it's a keyword ability. It just means that if someone targets Axebane Ferox, and it isn't us, if they target it with a spell or ability, they have a triggered ability, Ward, which they have to pay the cost of, and if they don't, it will counter their spell or ability. So if they want to use, I don't know, a lightning bolt on this, maybe they've got another lightning bolt in the wings, Ward will trigger, and they have to collect evidence 4, which is the cost of the ward. Collect evidence is from Murders in Karlov Manor. It means they have to exile cards with at least a total mana value of 4 from their graveyard. So if they, if we play the Axebane Ferox on, let's say, turn 4, and they have a removal spell, and they've got nothing in their graveyard, that removal spell is going to be countered because they can't exile at least 4 mana value worth of cards from their graveyard. In Commander, this becomes something that's able to be paid eventually, but it's interesting that this kind of means hexproof, at least for a while. And a 4/4 Deathtouch Haste, Questing Beast was pretty scary. Next up, we have the Double Strike category. I do want to just note that I mentioned Questing Beast in a deck that is all about just keyword abilities. Good luck to all of you who remember Questing Beast's abilities. We're going to start with Shrike Force from Bloomborough. 2 and a white for a 1/3 Bird Knight with Flying, Double Strike, and Vigilance. This is crazy. I mean, it's 3 mana, but it's attacking for 2. It's got Vigilance. It flies. Yeah, this little guy is pretty sweet. Next, I'm going to skip these two, and we're going to talk about 1-800 Are You Flappin'? It's Zatalpa, Primal Dawn. 6 and double white for a 4/8 Legendary Elder Dinosaur with Flying, Double Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible. This is true keyword soup. It's so great. Unbelievable how many times this card has been reprinted, including in Foundations. I mean, it's been in so many Commander precons, but a 4/8 Vigilance Flyer with Double Strike, with Trample, with Indestructible, that's all it needs, and it's 50 cents. This card absolutely kills people, as much of a meme as it is. And look at this incredible Chris Rellis art. Wow, so great. So that's the 2 creatures in this section. Let's talk about True Conviction. It's one of the first Anthem effects that we're going to see. For 3 and triple white, we get an enchantment that says all of our creatures have Double Strike and Lifelink. That's pretty good. Double Strike and Lifelink is a lot of life. Double Strike is a lot of damage. This is absolutely worth 6 mana, and yeah, just can't wait to drop this when I've got a bunch of creatures out. The way we get there is with War of the Alliance. This is a saga for 3 and a white from the Lord of the Rings set. The first 2 chapters of the saga are search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle. So it just draws us a card, essentially. It tutors for a legendary creature. We have several legendary creatures. A couple of them are angels. One of them is just a guy. But yeah, these are good cards that are excellent for supplementing what we may need at the table at that moment, and War of the Alliance lets us get 2 of them. Finally, this is why it's our Anthem effect and why it's in the Double Strike category. Chapter 3 is creatures you control gain Double Strike until end of turn, and the Ring tempts you. So I know you're wondering what the Ring tempts you means. This is the Ring. So we don't need to get into too much detail on this, because I think this is the only card. We may have one other card in the deck that has the Ring tempt us, but the Ring is an emblem that says when you are tempted for it the first time, we choose a Ring Bearer, which is just a creature we designate, and now they are a Ring Bearer, and that Ring Bearer has all the abilities that we've been able to accumulate. Every time the Ring tempts us, we get a new ability, and we get to choose a new Ring Bearer if we wish. If it happens just the once, then this is all we get, which is the Ring Bearer is legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with a greater power. That's a nice little benefit, a tiny little bit of evasion there, but really what we're looking at is the fact that it gives all of our creatures Double Strike. Pretty sweet. Next up is First Strike. We've got a couple of really nice ones here. We're going to start with Miri Cat Warrior. She counts as a Cat Warrior. 1 and double green, this is a 2/3 legendary Cat Warrior with 3 abilities: First Strike, Forest Walk, and Vigilance. So Forest Walk, this is our one instance in the deck of a land walk ability. What it means is if the defending player controls any lands with the type Forest, this creature cannot be blocked. So Miri is unblockable if we're attacking someone with forests. Probably someone's running a Temple Garden or just a basic forest. That seems pretty all right. We also have, I love Baneslayer Angel. So beautiful. So glad they reprinted in M21 when I was back playing Magic. For 3 and double white, we get a 5/5 Angel with Flying, First Strike, and Lifelink, as well as protection from demons and from dragons. So this is one of our only instances of protection in the deck. We know what Flying and First Strike and Lifelink do. Protection means this creature can't be damaged, equipped, enchanted, blocked, or targeted by anything that is a source that is a demon or a dragon. The way you remember protection is the acronym DEBT, D-E-B-T. Damage, the E it basically means attached. You can't have something equipped or enchanted, or fortified, but this is not a land. B is for blocked, and T is for targeted. So if we're playing against a dragon's deck, we swing in, and with the Baneslayer Angel, they can't block us. If they swing in, they can't do any damage to us with their dragons. Pretty sweet. Look at this incredible Greg Staples art. Gosh, love it so much. Next up, we have Boonbringer Valkyrie from March of the Machine. For 3 and double white, we get a 4/4 Angel Warrior with Flying, First Strike, and Lifelink. Seem familiar? This is just another Baneslayer Angel, except that it has Backup 1, keyword ability. Backup means when it enters, put a 1/1 counter on a creature. It can be itself, and if it is, this is basically a Baneslayer Angel, just without the protection from demons and dragons. However, if we put it on a different creature, until end of turn, that creature has the later abilities of Boonbringer Valkyrie. So we put a 1/1 counter on a creature we already have in play that does not have, let's say, Summoning Sickness, and it will get that +1/+1 counter, and until end of turn, it will get Flying, First Strike, and Lifelink. It'll be a little baby Boonbringer Valkyrie, which is itself a slightly baby Baneslayer Angel, which is incredible. And even if we only put that counter on the Boonbringer Valkyrie itself, a second Baneslayer? Heck yeah. Next, we have a Sunblade Angel. For 5 and a white, we get a 3/3 Angel with Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. This is a lot going on. The stats are not as impressive as some of the ones we've just been looking at, and it's a little expensive. But if we're trying to get a bunch of keywords out there, this Angel does work. Very, very nice. Next, we have Remember we talked about War of the Last Alliance giving us the ability to tutor for legends? We have two versions of Akroma right here. Akroma is an angel. We're going to talk first about Akroma, Vision of Ixidor. Akroma is a 6/6 legendary angel for 5 and double white with flying, first strike, vigilance, and trample, and partner. This is normally what partner means is if you have two creatures with partner, you can put them both in the command zone and they are together your commanders. Not really relevant in this case with Akroma not being our one of our commanders, but it will become relevant as you'll see from her other ability. Akroma is one of our soup creatures. We've got a few creatures that care about lots of different abilities. So let's talk about what she does. It says at the beginning of each combat, until end of turn, each other creature you control gets +1/+1 if it has flying, +1/+1 if it has first strike, and so on. For double strike, Deathtouch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Protection, Reach, Trample, Vigilance, and Partner. So, what that means is, look at this list of keyword abilities. If Akroma is out at the beginning of combat, we have a triggered ability on Akroma, and when it resolves, all of our creatures essentially get +1/+1 for each ability they have. As long as it's on this list, it gives them +1/+1. We have so many great abilities here, and this is an awful lot of our evergreen abilities, so we're going to see a lot of that in this deck. The one I want to call out right now is Protection, because it does say partner, and you'd think, oh, well, pretty sweet, but it does say until end of turn, each other creature you control. So Akroma is not getting these bonuses herself, but if you want to think of it this way, Akroma is a 1/1 angel that's already getting all of those bonuses. In any case, I wanted to call out Protection. People may ask, does Baneslayer Angel's protection from demon and dragons? Is this saying Baneslayer Angel has protection from demons and a second ability, protection from dragons, and they just wrote it this way? Or is this one ability? Because Akroma will give the Baneslayer Angel protection from demons, will give it +1/+1, and protection from dragons will give it +1/+1. But if it's only one ability, it's a single +1/+1. That is a great way of looking at the cards, but that's not actually what Akroma says. It's actually much simpler. Akroma gives that creature, until end of turn, +1/+1 if it has protection. So even if Baneslayer Angel did have 2 instances of protection, which, just to answer your question, it doesn't. This is a single instance of protection. Even if it had 2 instances of protection, Akroma is saying, hey, look at your creature and ask if it has this ability. If the answer is yes, give it +1/+1. So even if it had 2, even if the Baneslayer Angel had 2 instances of protection, we'd be asking, does it have protection? It gets +1/+1. Does it have a second protection? Yeah, it doesn't get another +1/+1 because we already answered, does it have protection at all? So it is not 2 instances of protection on the Baneslayer Angel, but even if it were, it doesn't matter. Akroma still gives it only the +1/+1. So we understand Akroma, Vision of Ixidor. Let's take a look at Akroma, Angel of Wrath. For 5 and triple white, we get a 6/6 legendary angel that just has a whole bunch of abilities. Another soup. Flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from red and from black. Again, that last one is a single ability, but it's protection. So if we have both Akromas out, which we very well could have, then Vision of Ixidor is going to give Angel of Wrath a single +1/+1 for its protection ability. But luckily it's getting another +5/+5 from these, so it's a 12/12. Anyway, that's crazy. That's our first strike category. Let's talk about flying. We've got fully 13 cards that have flying, starting with Aerial Responder from the Kaladesh set. Just want to make mention, the set is still called Kaladesh, even though the plane is now Avishkar. It's important. They had a revolution. For 1 and double white, we have a 2/3 dwarf soldier with flying, lifelink, and vigilance. 2/3 flyer with lifelink and vigilance, pretty good. We saw the Shrike Force having 1/3 life or 1/3 vigilance and flying and double strike. That was pretty good too. So yeah. Oh, there it is. Strike Force is back. See? Slightly easier to cast, but double strike instead of lifelink. even though it's the same amount of damage. Pretty nice. Next up, we have another weird one. This is Zephyrim from the Warhammer 40k decks. Zephyrim has 2 unique abilities on it. So this is a 3 and a white for a 3/3 human warrior with flying and vigilance. So kind of like a little baby angel, but it also has squad 2, or squad 2 generic, which means that when you cast it, you can pay 2 generic any number of times, and when you do, this creature will enter and you'll make a number of copies of it equal to the number of times you paid the squad cost. So it's sort of like multi-kicker in a way, but it's just a defined multi-kicker. It means on enters, or when this creature enters, make that many copies of it. So having 4 mana 3/3 flying vigilance is fine. Having 2 3/3 flying vigilances for 6, pretty good. Having 4 of them for 10, we can get there. And that's a lot of flying vigilance creatures. But not just that. You think of the bonus ones as costing only 2 mana? Well, good news, the Zephyrim has Miracle for 1 and a white. Miracle means if you cast it, if you draw this on your turn and it's the first card you drew that turn, you can immediately cast it for its Miracle cost. You don't have to wait. It's part of the Miracle ability. You cast it as part of the resolution of that ability. So in your draw step, make sure you draw your card and make it clear that you're drawing which card you've drawn, so that in case you draw the Zephyrim, you can drop it on the battlefield right away and say, haha, I cast this for its Miracle cost, and then I'm going to pay the squad cost as many times as I want. So if you have a bunch of mana and you're able to just squad up with this, Miracle is going to be great. If you don't, you can still Miracle it, and for 2 mana, get a 3/3 flying vigilance. That's a great rate. But it's also possible for you to say, I did draw it first, but I'm not going to reveal it. I'm going to hold on to it because I think that I'm going to get a whole bunch of mana later, and then I'll just pay the 3 and a white plus the squad cost. That's still fine. Next up, we've seen the Baneslayer Angel, love Baneslayer Angel, and Boonbringer Valkyrie, of course, but we have to go back to the classics. Sarah Angel is here, and we love her. I'm so glad they put this in Foundations. For 3 and double white, we have a 4/4 Angel with Flying and Vigilance. That's all it takes. Just a 4/4 Flying Vigilance. This has killed so many players, including me, so many times over the years. Yeah, I could talk about Sarah Angel for at least a few more minutes, but yeah, I love this card. If we're gonna have something vanilla, having something from Alpha, yeah, we gotta have it in here. On a similar note, we have Timeless Dragon. Timeless Dragon is 3 and double white for a 5/5 dragon with flying, but it also has 2 special abilities. Plane Cycling for 2 generic. What Plane Cycling means is, while this is in our hand, we can pay 2 generic mana and just discard the dragon. To search our library for any planes card, reveal it, put it in our hand, and shuffle. It does not have to be a basic planes, it just has to be a land card that has the word planes in its type line. So we have 4 cards in this deck that have land cycling abilities, and several more that have regular cycling abilities in the considering section. So again, if you want to check that out at the bottom of the Moxfield page, feel free. But I only kept ones in here that had land cycling abilities because sometimes it's early game, maybe even it's your opening hand, and we have 2 or 3 lands, but we want more. And it's worth taking this 5 mana creature that we might not be able to cast for a while otherwise, and just toss it in order to get ourselves a plains instead. And what's nice is we have a few typed duels in this deck, even though I built it on a budget, that may come in tapped, but at least they fix our mana, and we can plane cycle for them. But all that aside, a 5/5 flyer is pretty great, but what if we have to throw it away? Well, we can eternalize it. Eternalize for 2 and double white means when this is in our graveyard, we can exile it and pay the 2 and double white to make a token copy of it that is a 4/4 black zombie dragon with no mana cost. We can only do this as a sorcery, but essentially the idea is if you want this to be a 5/5 flyer, cast it for 3 and double white. If it dies, or if you plane cycle it, you can get it back and it will be a 4/4 flying black zombie dragon. So yeah, Eternalize is a great way to have a repetition of this card, especially to take advantage of the plane cycling ability. So 5/5 white flyer for 5, or 6 mana 4/4 black flyer, plus you get a plains in your hand. Either way is pretty good. Next we have another saga. This is just a really cool one. It depicts this great moment in the Innistrad history. So, similar to the last one, the first 2 chapters are the same. Chapters 1 and 2 say, for each player, exile up to 1 target non-saga, non-land permanent that player controls until this saga leaves the battlefield. So this is Grasp of Fate. You know, it's Banishing Light, but it can hit something on every other player's board. It just only lasts for as long as this saga is in play. So we get to exile a few things to O-ring them for a little while. We just can't hit lands and we can't hit sagas. And then the third ability is Create Avacyn, a legendary 8/8 white angel creature token with flying, vigilance, and indestructible. So we paid 6 mana and we had to wait a couple of turns, but during that time we got rid of stuff we didn't want our opponents to have. Maybe those things were tokens, so they're not coming back. And then, I'll show you what this token looks like because it's awesome. We get Avacyn. Look at this awesome. Alex Brownwin did such a great job on this. We get an 8/8 flying, vigilance, indestructible. Pretty amazing. This is one of the creature tokens we make in this deck that is a French vanilla creature. I think it sets a pretty good tone. So, we've seen that one. Let's take a look at Shepherding Spirits. Shepherding Spirits is another one of our Planecycler. It's our other Planecycler in the deck. 4 and double white for a 4/5 flyer with Planecycling 2. It's a spirit. It Planecycles if we need it to, but a 4/5 flyer is pretty good on its own, worth doing for 6. We've seen our Sunblade Angel, we've seen the 2 Achromas, and we've seen Zatalpa. We are flapping. So let's talk about Haste. Don't have a lot of instances of Haste, but we have a few. Achroma Angel of Wrath has one, Axebane Ferox has one, and we can give it to anyone we want with Swiftfoot Boots. Swiftfoot Boots is 2 mana for an equipment that equips for 1 and gives equipped creature Hexproof and Haste. This is equipment that has keyword abilities and gives keyword abilities, and it's classic and it protects our commander, and it's great. It's also worth noting that it's Hexproof and Haste that it gives. So if we look at the other, if we look at Achroma Vision of Ixidor, Achroma Vision of Ixidor cares about Hexproof and cares about Haste. So if we have a creature that is equipped with those with the Swiftfoot Boots, the Swifties are going to give that creature these abilities. It says that creature has those abilities, which means Achroma is going to give them +2/+2 because they have those abilities. Unless, of course, well, no, they're going to have them even if they already had one or both of those abilities because it checks to see if it has them at all. So yeah. Last of these Haste ones is actually a surprising card when it comes to Haste. This is Invasion of Zendikar. We have a couple of battles in this deck, I think 2. Invasion of Zendikar is our Explosive Vegetations. 3 and a green for this battle. When it enters, we can search our library for up to 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield, and then shuffle. So that's the Explosive Vegetation part. But if you're not familiar with battles, here's how they work. You pay the casting cost, and as it enters, you choose an opponent who is going to protect it. They are the defending player, and we get to attack the battle. We still control it, and if you look at this on Arena, it will put the battle on your opponent's side. The way I play it, it's still on my playmat just so it doesn't get mixed up and people get confused. But yeah, we attack this rather than a player. It's the same way you attack a planeswalker rather than a player. But whoever is the protector of the battle is the one who defends it, just like someone who defends a planeswalker. Just because they happen to control it doesn't mean that that's why they defend it, I guess, because you don't control a battle, or siege at least, if you are the defender. In any case, when we attack this battle, it comes in with 3 defense counters on it. Once we've done enough combat damage to it to reduce it to 0 or less, I suppose, then it transforms. It gets exiled, rather, and we can cast it transformed for free. So it does go to exile, and from exile, we have the option to cast it or not. If we don't, it just stays in exile. If we do, we have cast Awakened Skyclave, a 4/4 elemental that has Vigilance and Haste, so that's why it's in the Haste category, that says as long as this creature is on the battlefield, it's a land in addition to its other types. So we're also getting a land out of this, which is great because it taps for 1 mana of any color. Pretty sweet. So yeah, this is one of my favorite versions of Explosive Vegetation, and being able to attack in and get yet another French Vanilla creature out of it that will ramp us a little bit is pretty good. Also, when it comes to battles, I have found that these days, even if players like don't want to do any politicking with you, they kind of don't care about them. Like you say, hey, opponent A, will you be the defender of the invasion of Zendikar? And they're like, sure, whatever. And you say, okay, I'm attacking this battle. And they're like, all right, go ahead, I guess. I'm not going to block. I don't want to risk my creatures. Even if you get a little benefit out of it, you're having to use up your attack step. And it's not against me to get that benefit. That's okay with me. Which is crazy. You know, I mean, it's fine if it's appropriate when it comes to the like strategy of the game, but it just seems a little nuts to me to say like, wow, hey, you're getting free extra value that you're not having to spend any mana on, and you're using creatures that probably wouldn't have attacked me anyway, and you're attacking this instead, and having the attitude of saying it doesn't matter. That seems a little crazy to me. But who knows? Some people really hate battles. Some people really love them. I think I'm much closer to the second category. Anyway, yeah, Invasion of Zendikar, pretty sweet. Next we have, we've seen the Swifties. The Swifties are the only thing in the deck that give Hexproof. That's okay. All right, it's Indestructible next. We have another saga. Song of Freyalise is 1 and a green. The first 2 chapters, we had a lot of 2 of the same chapter sagas in here. They make it so all of our creatures can tap 4 mana of any color. So if we're not using our creatures to attack or to block, we can use them to ramp for at least 2 turns. And on that first turn, that is happening, but Song of Freyalise only costs 1 and a green. It's not that much. So we might not get any real ramp out of this, but at the very least, we are on the second turn. And then on the third one, we put a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control, and until end of turn, those creatures gain Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible. So this is a big swing for us if we want it to be. In fact, this might be one of our real big swings at the end. So yeah, we want to see Song of Freyalise give us that thing. Let's make sure she has it. Yeah, I didn't put it on there. Let's call it a finisher, because it is. We'll see more of that later. Next up, let's look at Vivien Reid, because we've already seen these other 2 cards in the Indestructible section. Vivien Reid is one of our Planeswalkers. She's the original Vivien. They reprinted her in Foundations, thank goodness. She is 3 and double green for a 5 loyalty legendary Vivien Planeswalker. Her +1 loyalty ability is look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put them into your hand, then put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So in case you haven't seen Planeswalkers before, this is a permanent. It's not a creature. Your opponents can attack it rather than you, and you can block their attacking creatures to stop them from hurting Vivien. If they hurt Vivien, she loses loyalty, and once per turn, during your turn at sorcery speed, you can activate 1 of her loyalty abilities by paying the cost here. That first one is a +1 ability, which means you put 1 additional loyalty on there. The idea is this Planeswalker is a buddy of yours. You are a Planeswalker, and they're a friend that you've summoned in. And if you say, hey, can you help me out by doing something you enjoy? They'll be like, oh yeah, I'm happy to do that. And it makes them a little more loyal. If you say, hey, could you do this thing that's a little more costly to you? They might be like, okay, yeah, I'll do that for you, but a little less loyal at this point. So her -3 is destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. So a good sort of like naturalized plummet effect. And then her ult, which you need her to be quite loyal to you if you want her to do it, for -8, you get an emblem with creatures you control get +2/+2 and have Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible. So this stays there forever. An emblem is not something that can be interacted with. It exists in the command zone. It's going to be there for the rest of the game. So oftentimes, Vivien's -3 is useful, and you have to do it if you have to do it. But generally, I play Vivien, immediately +1 her to, probably get a card in hand, and just keep doing that every turn until she's got 8 loyalty. And if I don't think, unless I think there's no way anyone can threaten Vivien, I'm gonna give her the -8 right away, which will put her in the graveyard, but it's worth it for this Anthem. I think it is very dangerous to say, I've got Vivien at 8, I can activate her now, I'm gonna keep giving her the +1. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Next up, we have Lifelink. We've seen a couple of these already. In fact, we've seen all but one of them. We've seen the Aerial Responder, and Baneslayer Angel, and Boonbringer Valkyrie. We've seen the Sunblade Angel, and True Conviction, which gives everything Double Strike and Lifelink. But we also have another one of our finishers. It's Bond of Discipline. Bond of Discipline is 4 and a white for a sorcery that says tap all creatures your opponents control. Creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. So yes, all of our creatures gain lifelink, and that's wonderful. But it's so much more notable that all creatures your opponents control get tapped. That means if they have a creature that has Vigilance, it's tapped, doesn't matter. If they have a creature with Hexproof or Shroud, doesn't matter because this doesn't target. Everything is tapped. And we can take our board of big creatures and we just try to see who can we kill in this at this point. What's also nice about Bond of Discipline is you can use it politically. You can say, hey, opponent to my left, you are going to get to untap first after I play this. So if I kill my opponent to my right, or the one between the two of you, will you kill the other one of those two since I didn't kill you rather than come at me? We have a lot of our creatures that have Vigilance, so in all likelihood, we're not going to have to attack with all of our creatures and be completely shields down. So that's a little bit of sort of the stick to go with our carrot. And that's a pretty good deal. You can even set it up if you're like, okay, 2 turns from now, I'm going to do something that's going to make both of the other 2 players in a tough situation. I just want you to consider supporting me when that happens. And then they'll see that it's Bond of Discipline when you play this, and they'll be able to say, oh, wow, if I don't support them, we're the ones that are going to die. So, yeah, Bond of Discipline, a lot of fun. Thanks, War of the Spark. Next up, we have Menace. We only have one instance of Menace on the Inquisitorial Rosette from the Warhammer decks, but it's not just one creature that gets it, the way that Swiftfoot Boots give Hexproof to the equipped creature. So this is an equipment that equips for 3, and it has an ability called Inquisition Agents. Whenever a equipped creature attacks, create a 2/2 white Astartes warrior creature token with Vigilance that it's attacking, then attacking creatures gain Menace until end of turn. So this is an Anthem effect. It gives every creature that's attacking Menace, and that happens after it makes a 2/2 Vigilance that is attacking. It's not tapped and attacking because it has Vigilance, and also it gives it to all of our creatures. So now we go to the blocker step, and they have to try and double block our creatures, or they don't get to block at all. So I recognize that this is not a keyword ability, but it grants a keyword ability, and it makes tokens with keyword abilities. So pretty close, and we have a few cards, like I mentioned, that support our plan. I think Inquisitorial Rosette is a great way to get Menace on our things if we're able to. Next up, I've got this Others category. This is for cards that have abilities that we have not seen in other categories. Like, for example, we've seen Ambush Viper, and now it has Flash. I don't have a category for Flash because the only creatures that have it are Ambush Viper and Galewind Moose. Galewind Moose is 4 and double green for a 6/6 Elemental Elk with Flash and Vigilance, Reach, and Trample. So, I'm sorry, Colossal Dreadmaw. This Moose is so much more powerful than you. It's a 6/6 Trample for 4 and 2 green, but it also has Reach and Vigilance and Flash. So, pretty good. And that is our other Flash creature. We've seen Miri Cat Warrior and how it has a Landwalk ability. We've seen Axebane Ferox has Ward. We've seen the Zephyrim, which has Miracle and Squad. And we've seen Timeless Dragon and how it has a land cycling ability and Eternalize. Let's talk about our last 3. Crystalline Giant has a triggered ability that gives it keyword abilities. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose a type of counter at random that this creature doesn't have on it from among Flying, First Strike, Deathtouch, Hexproof, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, Vigilance, and +1/+1, and then put a counter of that type on this creature. So what this means is get yourself a 10-sided die, or Google, roll a d10, or pick a random number from 1 to 10. And then you say, all right, you count it off. You rolled a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it has a Menace counter on it. And now, Crystalline Giant, start of combat, before you attack, is a 3/3 Menace. If you rolled a 10, it's going to get a +1/+1 counter. And you know that every time this happens, it's going to get a kind of counter that it doesn't have on it. So you'll say, let's say the first time you did it, you rolled Menace, which was a 6. And you roll that d10 again, you roll another 6, you just ignore it, roll it again. You get a 7, you get Reach. Now it's a Menace and a Reach. The next time, you can roll a d8 if you want to, that's fine. Or just roll the d10 again and ignore the 6 and the 7. So yeah, Crystalline Giant, a little annoying to have to deal with like what it has, but it just gets bigger and cooler and scarier, and you know, it's great. If you hit Hexproof and Flying, those are the winning hits. A lot of fun. Next, we have Annoyed Altasaur. This is 5 and double green for a 6/5 dinosaur with Reach and Trample, but it also has Cascade. I think this is our only instance of Cascade in the deck. Cascade means when you cast this creature card, you flip cards off the top of your library until you find a non-land that costs less than 7, which is, of course, the mana value of this Altasaur. You can then cast that spell for free if you want to. If you don't, it stays in exile. And then once that's done, you take all the other cards you flipped off the top, put them on the bottom of your library in a random order, and then the Annoyed Altasaur will resolve, and you have your 6/5 Reach Trample. Seems pretty good. This is probably gonna find us another creature, maybe something very good. Finally, we have Color of the Pack. Color of the Pack is also 5 and double green. This is an 8/6 beast with Trample. Love Trample on an 8-power creature, but it has Myriad. Myriad means when it attacks, let's say we're attacking opponent A, and we have 2 other opponents. When this attacks, it's going to make a copy of itself for each other opponent and attacking those opponents, or a planeswalker that they control. So if we attack opponent A or one of their planeswalkers, we will get a tapped attacking copy of Color of the Pack for opponent B, attacking them or one of their planeswalkers, and the same for opponent C or one of their planeswalkers. At the end of combat, we exile the tokens. So as long as Color of the Pack survives, we're going to do that every turn. So we get a bunch of 8/6 trampling creatures slamming in. Seems pretty fun. So those are our unique ability keyword creatures. Let's move on to protection. We've already seen both of these. Achroma Angel of Wrath has protection from black and red. Baneslayer Angel has protection from demons and dragons. Good instances of those. Now we'll talk about Reach. We've seen 3 of these. The Dragon Sniper, 1/1 for 1 with Reach plus Vigilance, Deathtouch. The Altasaur we just saw is a 6/5 with Reach and Trample. And the Moose is a 6/6 with Flash, Vigilance, Reach, and Trample. We also have the Beanstalk Worm. Beanstalk Worm is a 4 and a green for a 5/4 plant worm with Reach. That seems alright, but it also has an adventure on it. The creature is French vanilla. The adventure is its own thing. Plant Beans is a sorcery for 1 and a green that just says you may play an additional land this turn. So if you have 2 lands in hand, plus the Beanstalk Worm in hand, you can cast the adventure, gain yourself an extra land drop, and then Beanstalk Worm will go to exile, and you can cast the creature from exile, since it went to exile as part of this this adventure resolving. You cannot cast the adventure once the Beanstalk Worm is already on the battlefield. So it's sort of modal. When it's in your hand, you can either cast it as a creature, or cast it as a sorcery, and then as a creature at sorcery speed, after this is resolved. So, but how are you going to get that extra land in your hand? Well, let me show you Timberland Ancient. This is another one of our land cyclers. 4 and double green for a 6/5 Tree Folk with Reach and Trample, and 4 cycling 2. This is exactly like the plane cycling we saw on Timeless Dragon and Shepherding Spirits, except instead of a plains, it finds a forest. Put it in our hand, this goes into the graveyard. So those are our Reacher creatures. We have a lot of instances of Trample, because we have several different ways to give it to our creatures that will close out the game and our finishers. But first we're going to start with Hunter's Talent. I think this is kind of an underrated class from Bloombro. Hunter's Talent is an enchantment, it's a class. When it comes in, it has this top ability. And then at sorcery speed, we can pay this value, this cost here, to level it up to level 2, at which point it will have both of these. Same thing is true of this one. Once we've got it at level 2, we can pay the 3 and a green to make it level 3, and it will have all 3 of these abilities. But what are the abilities? For 1 and a green, when it comes in, when it enters, target creature we control deals damage equal to its power to target creature we don't control. It's Rabid Bite. It's at sorcery speed because, the Hunter's Talent's an enchantment, but that's pretty good. 1 and a green to just probably kill something. We have a lot of creatures that are big. The second level says whenever you attack, target attacking creature gets +1/+0 and gains Trample until end of turn. A slight boost to power and a chance to trample over? Sounds good to me, for just 2 mana. And then for 4 mana, at the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. So a repeatable source of card draw. And if we attacked with a creature and it got +1/+0, and then it didn't die, that may have pushed it to the point where it has power 4 or greater, and we get to draw a card off it as well. Hunter's Talon's great. We've seen Song of Freyalise and how its third ability can give everything trample, among other things. Garruk's Uprising. I think this card is great. It should be played in a lot of, it probably is played in most green decks. For 2 and a green, it's an enchantment that has 3 abilities, but the relevant one for this section is creatures you control have trample. This 3 mana thing gives all of our creatures trample. More keywords. The other 2 abilities it has draw us cards. When it enters, if we have a creature power 4 or greater, we draw a card. And once it's in play, whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters, we draw a card as well. So if we have something big, it'll come in, draw us a card, give everything trample, and everything that's big that enters after it has also draws us a card, replaces itself. And of course I use the Wilds of Eldraine Enchanting Tales frame for it. I know you're thinking, what's the deal with Eldraine and Garruk? Well, Garruk was in the original Throne of Eldraine set. The more you know. Next up, we have another one of our finishers, or really just a good card for us. For 3 and double green, we have a sorcery called Overwhelming Encounter that gives all of our creatures Vigilance and Trample until end of turn. Then we roll a 20-sided die. If we roll a 1 to a 9, all of our creatures also get +2/+2 until end of turn. If we roll a 10 to 19, those creatures instead get 2 1/1 counters, so they get the +2/+2 permanently. And if we roll a natural 20, we'll instead put 4 of those counters on our creatures. So everything gets +4/+4, Vigilance and Trample, and the counters stick around. Big, scary monsters. Thanks, Baldur's Gate. Next we have another finisher, Overwhelming Stampede. Love this guy. 3 and double green for a sorcery that says, until end of turn, creatures you control gain Trample and get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. We have a lot of big creatures in this, giving everything a whole lot of power bonus and trample, pretty alright. But even if that's not the case, even if our biggest creature is a 3/3, +3/+3 and trample is overrun. That's great. So, Vivian Reed we've already seen. Her emblem can give our creatures trample, plus Vigilance and Indestructible. Galewind Moose has trample, among other things. Slavering Branch Snapper is our other forest cycler. 4 and double green for a 7/6 trampling lizard. Very big, very tramply, and it 4 cycles for 2. So if we'd rather have a forest than this big monster, we just can't afford it yet, let's just do that. We've seen the Timberland Agent, it's our other forest cycler, and we've seen Akroma. Has trample, Annoyed Altasaur has it, Caller of the Pack, and all of its myriad tokens have it. Of course the other Akroma has it, and we love Zetalpa. We're going to see Zetalpa at least 1 or 2 more times. Zetalpa has it. Now it's time for Vigilance. We've got fully 18 cards that either have or give Vigilance. Dragon Sniper's got it. Song of Freyalise's 3rd chapter ability gives it to everyone. Aerial Responder has it. Now for our second battle. It's Invasion of Belenon. Invasion of Belenon is 2 and a white for a 5 defense siege. When it enters, we make a 2/2 white and blue knight creature token with Vigilance. So 2/2 Vigilant Knight. The classic knight, and it's French vanilla. And then when we defeat Invasion of Belenon, it flips into Glorious Anthem. Belenon War Anthem. Gives all of our creatures +1/+1. So just an actual Anthem effect to make everything a little bit bigger, including that 2/2 white and blue creature token with Vigilance. We have seen Miri Cat Warrior. She has Vigilance. Shrike Force has Vigilance. Invasion of Zendikar's Awakened Skyclave side has Vigilance. All of the Zephyrim have Vigilance, if we had the squad ability on it. Overwhelming Encounter gives everything Vigilance, as well as Trample and some bonuses. Sarah Angela has Vigilance. Vivian Reed, again, her emblem gives Vigilance. This battle has Avacyn. It makes Avacyn, which Avacyn has Vigilance, of course. Galewind Moose, Sunblade Angel, Akroma, these all have Vigilance, but so does our one Wrath in the deck, Realm Cloaked Giant. 5 and double white for a 7/7 giant with Vigilance. 7/7 Vigilance blocks all day, but it also has Cast Off as an enchantment, as an adventure rather. For 3 and double white, we can cast this sorcery, which is Destroy all non-giant creatures. Once we do, we can then cast the Realm Cloaked Giant, assuming we have 12 mana total to do all that. But this is our Wrath. You gotta have a Wrath sometimes. Do we have any other Giants in this deck? I don't think that we do. We do. We have one. We'll find out what it is. In any case, the other Chroma has Vigilance, and so of course does Zetalpa. So before we move on to our next thing, I want to go to our keyword soup section, just to be clear about why we have these things and what this means. So the Crystalline Giant is in this because it's going to have a bunch of keywords, assuming it doesn't die. It's got 10 possibilities, and it's just going to keep getting more and more and more. If it's in play for 11 combat phases on our turn, then it won't get any more abilities, and it will have 9 abilities and a 1/1 counter. That's pretty soupy. The same is true with a Chroma, in that she has 4 abilities, not counting partner, but really she's here because she is an Anthem effect for all of our creatures that have these abilities. This is a lot of abilities. It's not all of them, but it's many of them, and most of our creatures have at least one of these. So a Chroma, she contributes to the soup by making everything really big, the same way that Belladon War Anthem does. We also have Audric. We're going to talk about Audric first. Audric is just a guy. You can get this with the Lord of the Rings saga that lets us find a legendary creature. Audric Lunarch Marshal is 3 and a white for a 3/3 legendary human soldier that says at the beginning of each combat, not just combat on our turn, creatures we control gain first strike until end of turn if a creature we control has first strike. The same is true for flying, Deathtouch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. I know you're wondering, don't worry, we don't have any creatures with skulk. Couldn't find any good ones in white and green. But yes, this is almost the same list that Chroma Vision of Ixidor has. Audric has Skulk, Chroma has Partner and Protection. I think otherwise they're mostly the same, but the point is, Audric is really what's making this a potluck. You know, it's turning this keyword soup into something being served to everyone. If we have one creature that is wearing the Swiftfoot boots, that creature has Hexproof, and at the beginning of each combat, all of our creatures will then have Hexproof because we have one creature with it. If we're playing Zetalpa, then all of our creatures have the 5 abilities that Zetalpa has, including Indestructible. And that is true of Audric as well. Creatures you control, it's not other creatures you control. So yeah, Audric is really helping us out. And if we're able to tutor for him, I mean, a Chroma makes our things really big, that's pretty great too. Audric is a great way to do it the other way. And so is Concerted Effort from Original Ravnica. Concerted Effort is an enchantment for 2 and double white that says at the beginning of each upkeep, so still each, so it's every player's turn, but it's during the upkeep rather than at the start of combat. Creatures we control gain flying until end of turn if a creature we have control has flying. The same is true for Fear, First Strike, Double Strike, Land Walk, Protection, Trample, and Vigilance. So not quite as many things as Audric, but we are able to share Protection the same way we do from a Chroma. We have no creatures with Fear, but we sure have Miri Cat Warrior who has Forest Walk. So if we have an opponent with any forests, and we have Miri in play and Concerted Effort, all of our creatures are now unblockable against that opponent because they all can Forest Walk over to that opponent's board. So yeah, Concerted Effort is a little more difficult to remove than Audric because it's not a creature. It doesn't cover as many things, but it does last a little longer in each turn. So yeah, redundancy for these effects, just like I mentioned, ties the room together. So that covers our game plan. We're going to talk about the support for our game plan, starting with our card advantage section. I say draw here, but they're not just draw spells. Card advantage is what this is. I'm just using draw as a shorthand for that. So Hunter's Talent gives us the ability to draw cards once we're at level 3, if we have creatures power 4 or greater at our end step. Kenrith's Transformation is one of our removal spells, removal in quotes. For 1 and a green, it is an aura that says enchant creature, and when this aura enters, draw a card, so that's our card draw. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3. So we have a deck full of French vanilla creatures, we're going to take one of our opponent's creatures and make them regular vanilla. Just, they are a 3/3 elk, and that is all. So yeah, this is not permanent removal. It turns their creature into a 3/3. It's only able to affect creatures, and only creatures that we can target, and they could get rid of it, so it's not quite the same as, Beast Within or Generous Gift. But it does draw us a card. And I think it is very funny to say, yeah, it's not that we got rid of their creature and they got a vanilla creature. It's that their creature became vanilla. Ha 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 ha. At the very least, we could turn off someone's commander. Or like, annoying utility creature. Colossal Majesty is a little like Garruk's Uprising. It is 2 and a green for an enchantment that says at the beginning of our upkeep, if we control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. So it's repeatable card draw in the same way as Garruk's Uprising, except that this is about creatures or itself entering, and this is about the upkeep. So I guess it's actually a little bit more like the third chapter of Hunter's Talon. It just triggers at the upkeep rather than at the end step. But I've just seen these both for so long, this is a little newer, that these sort of are connected in my mind. Next up is Growing Rights of Itlimoc. This version is from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, but they did print it in original Ixalan. It's very nice. I guess it's not, oh yeah, it shows at the top, there we go. So, Growing Rights is a legendary enchantment for 2 and a green that says, when it enters, look at the top 4 of your library. You can reveal a creature from among them, put it into your hand, and put the rest into the bottom in a random order. So we've got a lot of creatures in this deck. So it's a pretty good chance that we're going to find a creature. So this gives us a little card advantage. Comes in, draws a card for us, even though it's not a draw. But at the beginning of our end step, if we control 4 or more creatures, we transform Growing Rights of Itlimoc into Itlimoc, Cradle of the Sun. This is Gaia's Cradle. We can tap it for green, or we can tap it for a green for each creature we control. So it's big ramp for us by giving us this legendary land, which, even if we don't have any creatures out, it still taps for green, which I don't think original Gaia's Cradle does. Maybe I'm wrong. In any case, Growing Rights, a delightful card. It used to be very expensive, not anymore. War of the Last Alliance, we've seen already. It tutors for creatures, legendary creatures. Return of the Wild Speaker. It's a draw spell or it's a finisher. This is that moment I mentioned with Garruk in original Throne of Eldraine when the Cauldron of Eternity, I believe, breaks the curse that the Chain Veil put on him. And he was no longer Garruk Cursed Huntsman. Now he's just Garruk again, the Wild Speaker. Anyway, 4 and a green for an instant that says we either choose to draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures we control. We've got a lot of non-humans in this. Or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. Doesn't grant trample, but it might be enough. At the very least, it's going to make one of our opponents have a worse day at that point. But we might use it to just get a whole lot of cards in hand. Maybe even refill our hand this way. Maybe even more than refill it. I think that's worth 5 mana. Similarly, Shamanic Revelation is 3 and double green for a sorcery that says draw a card for each creature you control. So if we've got 8 creatures, we'll draw 8 cards. And then we gain 4 life for each creature we have with power 4 or greater. So maybe we only draw 1 card and gain 4 life. That's probably not worth 5 mana, but that's sort of the lower bound in this deck. We've got so many big creatures. It's pretty unlikely that we're going to be able to cast this when we only have 1 creature that will qualify for it. So card draw, a little bit of life gain, pretty good. Next up, we have the other Vivian. So we've already seen Vivian read and how she can give us card advantage by looking at the top 4, finding a creature or land and putting it in our hand. That's even better than how Growing Rights works. This is Vivian Monsters Advocate, and I chose the Ikoria comic art because it was a little cheaper, but both of the arts are great for her. Both? All of them? In any case, 3 and double green for a 3 loyalty legendary Vivian Planeswalker with 2 static abilities. We can look at the top card of our library at any time, and we can cast creature spells from the top of our library. So that's card advantage, baby. In addition, for +1, we make a 3/3 green beast creature token, and we put our choice of a Vigilance, Reach, or Trample counter on it. So Vivian makes French vanilla creatures. Oftentimes we're doing Reach because we're having to block flyers. Vigilance is really great. Trample is good, of course, especially if we have some kind of pump or Anthem effect affecting it. But also, -2, this is so good in our deck because we have such big creatures. If we -2 Vivien, when we next cast a creature spell this turn, we get to also search our library for another creature with lesser mana value and put it on the battlefield and shuffle. This is better than Cascade because we get to just tutor for that creature and it goes directly to the battlefield. Great. So pumping out defenders that can protect Vivien or, do some work for us. Maybe we have Audric out, and this is how we get up all of our creatures' reach or trample or vigilance. And then sometimes we just double up on our cards. This is also card advantage. You double up on our creatures, that is. So yeah, that's Vivien. Vivien and Vivien. Must be weird to look at each other this way. Anyway, so before we move on from our card advantage section, I just want to take a mention of our cycling cards. We've seen all of these already. Every one of these cards gives us, we discard this and pay 2 generic mana to go find a land card that goes into our hand. That land is either going to be plains for these two or a forest for these two. Like I mentioned, we have a couple of lands that are dual typed, so we can get something that's a multicolored one that goes into our hand. But in any case, that's sort of like saying, pay 2, draw a plains. Pay 2, draw a forest. So it's a little bit of card advantage if you want to think of it that way. I just want to mention them here. So next up is our acceleration section, which again, I just shorthand as ramp. Everyone knows Soul Ring. Gotta love Soul Ring. It's 1 mana, taps for 2, you want it in your deck. Wayfarer's Bauble is, I put this in so many more decks now than I used to. For 1 generic, it is an artifact that says for 2 and tap and sacrifice it. Rampant Growth. Search your library for basic, put that card to the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. We could have just put Rampant Growth in this deck, but I think that Wayfarer's Bauble really helps. If we have so many creatures that are kind of big, sometimes we're going to want to just split it up. Sometimes we're going to just draw the Wayfarer's Bauble and only really have 1 mana left in our turn. Like in our 1 mana available to us for that turn. So we're going to have more later, but at least we don't have to decide between playing this card or playing a different card later. Or rather this turn, I should say. So yeah, Wayfarer's Bauble. If you wanted to do more of a traditional ramp spell like, Rampant Growth or Kadama's Reach or anything along those lines, go for it. I think Wayfarer's Bauble for 1 mana is a great include. Arcane Signet, of course, always got to have an Arcane Signet. For 2 generic, it's an artifact that taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. So it's a 2 mana rock, taps for green and for white. That's great. I guess I should mention that. It is time to talk about color identity for Polukranos. Polukranos is a color identity of green and white. It looks like it's just green because the card is green. We know the card is green because it doesn't have a color type a color indicator, and it only has green mana symbols in its casting cost. But it does have a Phyrexian white mana in its text box, which is a white mana symbol when it comes to color identity. So color identity is defined not by the color of the card, but by all of the pips that appear on the card, and of course any color identity. So Polukranos, that's why you've been seeing all these white cards, because Polukranos has this Phyrexian white pip, which lets it be a color identity of Selesnya. So we're back to our acceleration section. We've got our medallions, just because they're not that expensive and they're great for this deck. Emerald Medallion and Pearl Medallion do the same thing. Yeah, they do the same thing, just for different colors. They both cost 2, they're both artifacts. Emerald Medallion makes our green spells cost 1 less. Pearl Medallion makes our white spells cost 1 less. And this is bothering me. I want to update this to the Modern Horizons 3 version, since that's what I have for the Pearl Medallion. Much better. As you can see, they both come from Tempest. We also have another 2 mana rock, Selesnya Signet. It's 2 generic. If we pay a generic and tap it, we add a green and a white. So it's sort of like it taps for green and white, but we have to pay a mana into it, so it can't tap on its own. So if you like the talismans better than this, and you're willing to pay the life for it, that's fine too. Song of Freyalise, as I've mentioned, for the first 2 chapters, makes our creatures into mana dorks. That's acceleration. Growing Rights accelerates its like crazy once we flip it into Itlamok, Cradle of the Sun. Buried in the Garden, so cool. Buried in the Garden from Murders at Karlov Manor is an enchantment. It's an aura that enchants one of our lands. For 2, a green and a white, it says when this aura enters, exile target non-land permanent you don't control until this aura leaves the battlefield. So this is sort of like Banishing Light, if you want to think of it that way, except that it's an aura enchanting one of our lands. So if someone blows up that land, this is going to go to the graveyard, and whatever we have exiled will come back. But while this enchanted land, or while this is enchanting a land, whenever we tap that land for mana, we also add an additional mana of any color. It doesn't have to be a color that we already have access to. It can be 1 mana of any color. So great. Giving us a little bit of fixing, giving us a little bit of ramp, and getting rid of something of our opponents. We've seen Invasion of Zendikar. It does an explosive vegetation. Lets us double rampant growth. Beanstalk Worm lets us ramp by giving us the ability with its Plant Bean sorcery to play an additional land during that turn. And then we have Mirari's Wake. For 3 and a green and a white, this enchantment gives all of our creatures +1/+1. And whenever we tap a land for mana, we add 1 mana of any type that land produced. So every one of our lands will add 2 mana of one type rather than just the 1. So Mirari's Wake as an Anthem and as a ramp source is great. That's why it's kind of up and down here. You can say that, Selesnya Signet and maybe Plant Beans are not very strong when it comes to being ramp pieces. But the Medallions and Mirari's Wake are. So they sort of balance out our Wayfarer's Baubles and Signets and what have you. So next up is our removal section. This is interaction. I just keyworded as removal. Or shorthanded as removal, I should say. So as I'm often saying, in a white deck, Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares are almost the same card. For 1 white mana, they are both instants. They both exile a target creature, but they give that creature's controller a little kickback. Swords to Plowshares gives that creature's controller life equal to that creature's power. Path to Exile lets that creature's controller rampant growth. Search for a basic, put it in the battlefield, tap to shuffle. So rather than see an opponent's creature, would you like that opponent to have a little more life, or maybe just have a land that comes in tapped? Probably better than whatever creature you're getting rid of, especially for 1 white mana. Hunter's Talent comes in, and it's a bite effect, so that's removal. Kenrith's Transformation turns something into a 3/3 vanilla. It's an elk, that's removal. Emergency Eject. I've been using this a lot more now than I used to. I used to play a lot of Stroke of Midnight from Wilds of Eldraine. So 2 and a white for an instant that says destroy target non-land permanent. Just anything that's not a land, get rid of it. And its controller creates a lander token, which is a Wayfarer's Bauble. It's a token that says pay 2 generic, tap and sap the token, and they get to rampant growth. So they have to pay mana, and they do get a land out of it, but they've got to pay for it rather than just get it the way that we would have Path of Exiled it for them. And it hits any non-land permanent. Pretty good. Grasp of Fate works similarly to the saga that we were talking about earlier, but it sticks around because it's not a saga. For 1 double white, it's an enchantment that says when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, exile 1 non-land permanent that player controls until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. So it's Banishing Light with a slightly more restrictive casting costs. It's 1 and double white instead of 2 and a white, but it hits something on everyone's board. And it doesn't have to hit it, because it says exile up to 1 target non-land permanent. So we can play a little politics with this. Look, I won't target your thing with my Grasp of Fate, but what will you give me? In the Trenches is a Glorious Anthem. For 1 and double white, creatures you control get +1/+1. But also, it has this activated ability. For 5 and a white, exile target non-land permanent you don't control until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery and only once. So in the Trenches is Glorious Anthem plus Banishing Light. You just have to pay the 6 once it's already in play to get the Banishing Light effect. And you can only do it once. Only once means once per game. But having something that's giving us removal and an Anthem effect, I mean, that's buried in the garden. So great. And like we've seen, Vivian Reed can blast artifacts, enchantments, and creatures out of the sky. And we've seen this be able to do its Grasp of Fate impression. So that is our interaction section. We've already seen our 1 Wrath. Seen a lot of Chroma, Angel of Wrath. We've already seen our one Wrath in Realm Cloaked Giant and its cast off ability. So it's just nice to have this as a bit of utility in case we need to clear the board. Sometimes our opponents are playing creatures as fast as us, and their creatures are better because they're not French vanilla, or more synergistic perhaps. That's not our goal, but this is not that complicated of a deck. So we need to have answers to decks that are more complicated and maybe going off faster than us. So we've seen now our game plan and our support cards. Let's see the couple of extra categories we have to support our game plan, or rather to supplement it. So these are our anthems. Anthems, generally people use an anthem to just represent cards like in the trenches. This is something that gives all of our creatures a power and toughness boost. But it's also an anthem if it gives all of our creatures an ability. That's sort of what we're doing in this deck. Garruk's Uprising gives all of our creatures Trample, Imperial Rosette, or Inquisitorial Rosette rather. When equipped creature attacks, it does make a 2/2 white Astartes Warrior that's attacking and has Vigilance, but it also gives our creatures Menace. Everything gets Menace. Song of Freyalise gives us all of our creatures +1/+1, Trample, Vigilance, and Indestructible. Beastmaster Ascension. This is a little bit of a non-traditional anthem, but it works. For 2 and a green, it's an enchantment that says whenever a creature we control attacks, we may put a quest counter on this enchantment. We will. And as long as this enchantment has 7 or more quest counters on it, our creatures get +5/+5. This happens, the quest counter, when a creature, any of our creatures attacks, this will trigger for each of them, and we'll get quest counters. This happens as long as there are quest counters on it. So don't read this to say once our creatures are attacking, if there are 7 quest counters, they get +5/+5. The attack part only cares about putting the counters on it. Once the counters are there, if we've got Beastmaster Ascension in play and it has at least 7 counters on it, all of our creatures get +5/+5 at all times. The only way to get rid of that is to get rid of the creatures or get rid of the Beastmaster Ascension. Oh, and we're going to get that. We're going to attack. So Garruk's Uprising gives everything Trample. In the Trenches gives everything +1/+1. So does Invasion of Belladon's Backside, Belladon War Anthem. War of the Last Alliance, its 3rd ability gives everything Double Strike. Mirari's Wake gives everything +1/+1. Vivian Reed's ultimate ability gives everything Trample, Vigilance, Indestructible, and +2/+2. True Conviction gives everything Double Strike and Lifelink. Chroma gives everything +1/+1 for essentially every keyword on it. And now we have a Room enchantment from Duskmourn. Rooms are enchantments that are also split cards. So in your hand, you've got this card, and when you cast it, you can either cast it for the Dollmaker Shop side or the Porcelain Gallery side. If you cast it for the Dollmaker Shop, you pay that cost, which is 1 and a white. Porcelain Gallery, you pay 4 and double white. Whichever one you play, when this resolves, it will enter the battlefield, and that side or door will be unlocked. The other side is there for you to unlock at sorcery speed by paying its casting cost. So if you cast Porcelain Gallery for 4 and double white, it will enter, and you will have this effect. Creatures you control have base power and toughness, each equal to the number of creatures you control. That's our anthem. Everything loses its regular base power and toughness and gains power and toughness XX, where X is the number of creatures we control. So maybe something we don't want to have right away, but we can certainly work toward. If we've cast Porcelain Gallery, that door, it's called, is locked, and that door is unlocked, and this door is locked. At sorcery speed, we can unlock the Dollmaker Shop side, 1 and a white, and now both sides are open, so both effects are in play. The Dollmaker Shop says whenever 1 or more non-toy creatures we control attack a player, create a 1/1 white toy artifact creature token. This is the only instance between creatures and creature tokens in our deck of something that is purely vanilla. Everything else has at least 1 ability. We're hoping that some of our other things will give it abilities. But in any case, this gives us a way to continually make more toys and build up our ability to have, this leaves a blocker behind because that toy is not tapped in and attacking. And we can get more and more of those. And the more of those we get, once we unlock the Porcelain Gallery, assuming we play the Dollmaker Shop first, everything's going to be bigger and bigger. So hopefully we play this on turn 2, we play a couple of other creatures, we attack a little bit, and by the time we get to the Porcelain Gallery, let's say we have at least 6 creatures, that means all of our creatures, including these toys, are 6/6s. So a little bit of a conditional, strange anthem effect, but pretty good for this deck where we have a lot of creatures and a lot of creature tokens. So that is our Anthems section. Let's talk more about tokens. There's only a few things that make them, but they can make multiples. So this battle makes Avacyn, that's only one. Invasion of Belanon comes in and makes a 2/2 knight, that's only one thing. But Vivian can make a 3/3 beast every turn we want to use her +1 ability. Inquisitorial Rosette makes a 2/2 vigilant Astartes warrior every time we attack with the equipped creature. And of course, Dollmaker's Shop says whenever we attack with anything, as long as at least one of our creatures attacking is not a toy type, we make another toy. So we build up a little bit more of our army this way. Final category is finishers. We have 5 of these that give us a way to close things out. It does not include our anthems for things like Vivian Reed's emblem. It makes sense that it would. Maybe I will tag those after this, but these are just meant to be a thing that happens that we can build toward rather than something that sticks around. So that's why we have Song of Freyalise in here. We know it's coming, but it only sticks around for one turn, the 3rd chapter ability. Everything gets a +1/+1 counter, Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible until end of turn. Bond of Discipline finishes things off because it taps everyone else's creatures down, so they can't block us. And we get Lifelink. Overwhelming Encounter, as you know, gives all of our things Vigilance and Trample, and either +2/+2, a permanent +2/+2, or a permanent +4/+4. Overwhelming Stampede gives all of our creatures Trample, and a Power and Toughness boost equal to the greatest power among creatures we control. And of course, Return of the Wild Speaker doesn't give any kind of evasion, but it can give all of our non-humans, which is most of our creatures, +3/+3 until end of turn. So that is how we do it. Let's move to our lands so that we can close this all out. We will start with our basics. We're running 24 basics. We've got almost an identical number of green and white pips on our deck. So we're running 12 forests and 12 plains. Of course, they are both from Theros Beyond Death, whereas the last time I saw Polukranos before Mom. We are running one of the bicycle lands, Scattered Groves. It's called Bicycle because it comes in taps for green or white, and it cycles for 2, Bicycle. So if we need to cycle this, we can discard it, and it's not land cycling, it just draws us a card, whatever's on the top. However, it is a typed duel. So Scattered Groves is a forest plains. If we want to forest cycle or plain cycle, we can find this and it comes into our hand. When we play it, it will come in tapped, but it's a tapped duel. It taps for, green or for white. That's good for us. A different way that can be good for us is with the Selesnya Sanctuary. It's a bounce land. I love the bounce lands in Commander. It comes in tapped, and when it comes in, we have to return a land we control to its owner's hand. Which means when it comes in, if it's the first land we play, we have to return it to our hand. We don't want to do that. But if we played a plains on turn 1, and then we play the Selesnya Sanctuary on turn 2, it will come in tapped and we bounce the plains to our hand, which guarantees we have a land drop next turn. But I know you're thinking, well then I'm down a land. But we're not, because Selesnya Sanctuary taps for 2 mana. That's why it's so restrictive, because it's able to tap for 2 mana. So this means if you only have a plains and a Selesnya Sanctuary in hand, and assuming you have a 1-drop card like a 1-cost creature, let's say. You've got the Dragon Sniper and you've got a forest. You play your forest on turn 1, you play your Selesnya Sanctuary on turn 2, bounce the forest, and now you've got a card, a land you can play for turn 3, and it's turn 3 and you've got 3 open mana. It's great. The only thing I want to mention about that sequence is it's Commander, so your first turn you're going to draw no matter what. So if on your first turn you draw, then you play a basic, you're down to 7 cards. On your second turn, you draw, you're back up to 8. You play the bounce land, you're down to 7. The bounce land bounces the land from the first turn, you're back up to 8, and now you have to discard. So be careful about playing your bounce land on turn 2. Unless you were able to say, I don't know, play that Dragon Sniper, or maybe play a Soul Ring. One of your, a Wayfarer's Bauble, one of your 1-cost things on that first turn, or on the second turn even. Tap your basic on the second turn and cast the Wayfarer's Bauble, and then play the Selesnya Sanctuary. Anything so you don't have to discard unless you really feel like it. Next up, we are running Sunpetal Grove. It's our check land. Check lands are great. They come in untapped if you control either a forest or a plains. That's what Sunpetal Grove does, at least. If you don't control anything with the forest and plains type, like Scatter Groves or these basics, it will come in tapped, but at least it taps for green or white, the same as Scatter Groves. So if you wanted to upgrade for a little more expensive cards, you could put in, let's say, Overgrown Farmland, which is the slow land version of this. It's also something that is a conditional untapped land, but in Commander, you're likely to be able to have that come in, I think, a little bit more regularly as untapped than you would Sunpetal Grove. Although Sunpetal Grove is very good in a deck that's got, I think, 26 cards that it can check for and meet its requirement. So yeah, 26 because there are 24 basics, and then we've got Scattered Groves and Canopy Vista, which we'll see in a moment. But for now, Sungrass Prairie. It's a filter land. We pay 1 mana into it, and we get 2 mana out, 1 green and 1 white. It's the same thing as our Selesnya Signet that we saw earlier, just in land form. If we wanted to be more of a traditional duel, we could do something like Temple Garden, the shock land. You know, a little more expensive, of course. And similarly with Scattered Groves, if we wanted something that's a typed duel that's a little bit basic, Temple Garden would be great. Or even if we're fine with it coming in tapped, we could get the Surveil land, which is Lush Portico, which will come in tapped, but then let us surveil. So next up, we have our fixing lands. We're running 6 of them. So of course we have Command Tower. It's untapped, and it taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity, which is, of course, Arcane Signet. So we want to run this in anything that's at least 2 colors, sometimes in things that are 1 color. Any decks that are 2 color, that is. We also have Temple of the False God. Some people don't like this card. I think it's very good. It is a land that comes in untapped and taps for 2 colorless mana, so it's Soul Ring. It just doesn't work unless we control 4 other lands. So activate only if you control 5 or more lands, it counts itself. So this means it's a Soul Ring on a land, it's a Soul Land, just not early game. This is not the kind of deck you build for games that are going to be over that soon. So Temple of the False God is good. It's a shame if your opening hand has a basic land and Temple of the False God in it and no other lands. You probably want to mulligan that, but otherwise it's more strong. It's strong in more situations than it is not. After that, we have 4 soft fetches. Evolving Wilds comes in. We can tap it and sacrifice it to find a basic and put it on the battlefield tapped, so we Rampant Growth. Cabaret Courtyard and Broker's Hideout in this deck are the same card, because they are similar to Evolving Wilds, except that instead of having to activate them to tap and sacrifice them, when they come in, they immediately sacrifice themselves. They come in, they automatically sack themselves, they let us find a basic forest or plains, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle, and then we gain a life. The only difference between these is that Broker's Hideout could also find an island, and Cabaret Courtyard could also find a mountain. But in this deck, we don't have any of those, so it's fine. And because they don't show the colored pip, they just say the word island and mountain, we don't have to worry about them not fitting our color identity. So these are like Evolving Wilds, but they gain us a life, except that we can't hold them up and crack them when we want to, which maybe is relevant for us. Not usually in this deck, but it could be. Myriad Landscape is our final fetch land. It comes in tapped, and it taps for colorless, or we can pay 2, tap, and sack it to find 2 basic lands that share a land type. So they have to be basic, and they have to both be plains or both be forests in this deck. But they come in tapped onto the battlefield, and then we shuffle. So even though it takes a little bit of time, this is a land that turns into 2 lands, so that's ramp, right there in our land base. Pretty good. Next up, we have Canopy Vista, as I mentioned. It's a Tango land, we call it. Tango lands are the original slow lands. It is a typed duel. It's a forest or a plains, and it enters the battlefield tapped unless we control 2 or more basic lands. That's not basic typed lands, that's lands that have the basic super type. So if we have 2 plains or 2 forests or 1 of each, Canopy Vista will come in untapped, otherwise it comes in tapped. And that's okay. I mean, a lot of times in this deck, we've got 24 basics. Usually this is going to come in untapped, but if we really wanted to upgrade, like I mentioned with the Scattered Groves, we could upgrade to probably Temple Garden, the shock land. Finally, we have these 3 utility lands. Demolition Field, I put in most of my decks. It taps for colorless, or you can pay 2, tap, and sacrifice it to destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Then they get to search for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield untapped, and then so do we. So Demolition Field is land destruction, but it's not mass land destruction. So it's not something, I know some people think that any land destruction in Commander is rude, but sometimes somebody has a Rogue's Passage out, or has a Glacial Chasm if they're playing that kind of thing, or a Maze of Ith, something that's really annoying and it's non-basic, so it's fair game. Demolition Field, especially because Demolition Field lets them replace it with a basic and also lets us replace it, so neither of us is down a land. It's okay. I mean, they wouldn't have put it in Foundations if it weren't. Next up is Mosswort Bridge. Let's take a little closer look at Mosswort Bridge. Mosswort Bridge comes in tapped and taps for green. So it's a tapped forest, kind of, except it's not typed as a forest. But it also has Hideaway 4, which means when it enters, we look at the top 4 of our library, exile one of them face down under Mosswort Bridge, and put the rest on the bottom of our library in a random order. Then we can tap this for green once it's untapped, or if we want, we can pay a green and tap it, and play the exiled card without paying its mana cost, as long as we have creatures with total power 10 or greater. That is not hard in this deck. We can definitely make it happen. We can get there. Our creatures are quite big, and we have Anthem effects that get them a little bigger. And it does say, play the exiled card. So if we decided to play Mosswort Bridge, and we hide away 4, we look at the top 4, and they're all lands, we can put a land under this, and we can play it by paying a green and tapping this while we have total power greater of 10 among our creatures. We can play a land out from under this. It is worth noting, though, that doesn't say put it on the battlefield. So we have to use our land drop for the turn to play this card. If we've already made a land drop, we're not going to be able to do so. But if it's a spell, we can just cast it for free without paying its mana cost. I like Mosswort Bridge. Last is Rogue's Passage. We've got a lot of big creatures in this deck, like I mentioned. Polukranos itself, pretty big. So Rogue's Passage taps for colorless, or we can pay 4 and tap it to make one of our creatures unblockable this turn. So that lets us get in, maybe win the day. We don't always have Bond of Discipline in our hand, so Rogue's Passage can do a pretty good imitation of it, one creature at a time, just without the lifelink. And that about sums it up. Again, I'm making a deck for each of the March of the Machine legends, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a specific commander or style for me to build them into a deck. And that is Polukranos Reborn. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe, and remember, Magic is fun. You should play more Magic.